The snow fell in silence over the Syrian compound. January 17th, 2019, 3:47 in the morning. The kind of night where sound traveled too far and death came without warning. Captain Evelyn Aldridge, 30 years old, lay prone on a crumbling rooftop 4 stories above hell. Her rifle, a custom M110 semi-automatic, rested against her shoulder like an extension of her body. Through the thermal scope, she watched her team die. Not all of them, not yet, but enough. The trap had been perfect. Intelligence said light security, minimal resistance. Extract the high-value target and disappear before dawn. But the HVT was already dead when they breached the compound. Had been for days judging by the smell, and the compound wasn't lightly secured. It was a kill box. 42 hostiles, dug in, waiting, automatic weapons, RPGs overlapping fields of fire. Her team's 6 operators, the best the Navy could offer, had walked straight into an ambush designed specifically for them. Lieutenant Nathaniel Mercer's voice crackled over the radio. Calm, always calm even with rounds chewing through the wall behind him. Iron Wolf, this is actual. Fall back to exfil point. That's an order. Evelyn didn't move. Through her scope, she could see Nathaniel 40 meters from her position, pinned behind a concrete barrier. Blood on his sleeve. 3 hostiles flanking his position. He had maybe 30 seconds before they overwhelmed him. Negative actual. I can provide cover from... You can't save us all, Evelyn. His voice was steady, the voice of a man who'd already accepted his fate. But you can make sure some of us get home. Fall back. Stack. Now, she should have obeyed. Protocol demanded it. Chain of command. Mission parameters. All the rules they'd drilled into her since Quantico. Instead, she chambered around. The first hostile went down at 3:49. Clean headshot, 800 meters, moderate wind. The second followed 3 seconds later. Center mass. The third tried to run, made it 6 steps. For 22 minutes, Evelyn Aldridge became something other than human. She became mathematics. Wind speed times distance. Bullet drop compensated by elevation. Target acquisition, trigger squeeze. Breathe, repeat. 19 targets, 19 rounds fired. 19 bodies cooling in the desert dust. The enemy never saw her, never knew where death was coming from. They just knew that every time someone moved into the open, someone died. It broke them, made them hesitate, made them afraid. It bought her team 7 minutes, long enough for 3 of them to fight their way to the extraction point. Staff Sergeant Willis, Petty Officer Kimura, Corporal Brandt, 3 survivors who owed their lives to a woman who refused to follow orders. Nathaniel Mercer wasn't one of them. She watched him fall at 4:11, watched him try to stand, watched him realize he couldn't. The blood pooled too fast, too much of it. He managed to key his radio one last time. Iron Wolf. His breath came ragged, wet, dying. Tell my son, wolves protect the pack. Then silence, then nothing, then a hole in the world where a good man used to be. Evelyn didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't feel anything at all. She just kept firing, kept killing, until the compound was quiet and the sun was rising and her rifle was empty and Nathaniel was still dead. She hadn't known he had a son. 4 years and 11 months later, the cold had followed her to Virginia. Admiral Harrington Steele's office overlooked the Chesapeake Bay. December wind rattled the windows. Rain came in sheets. Evelyn sat in front of his desk in her dress uniform, ramrod straight hands folded in her lap. Perfect military bearing, perfect control, perfect ice. Steele studied her over steepled fingers. 58 years old, silver hair cut military short, eyes that had seen 3 wars and signed too many condolence letters. Operation Phantom Gate. He didn't phrase it as a question, didn't need to. 4 years ago next month. Yes, sir. 3 survivors out of 6, thanks to you disobeying a direct order. 3 dead, sir, because I wasn't fast enough. He leaned back in his leather chair. The creak was loud in the quiet room. The after-action report says you eliminated 19 hostiles in 22 minutes, alone, under fire, in conditions that would make most snipers pack up and go home. Evelyn said nothing. There was nothing to say. The numbers spoke for themselves. 19 kills, 3 survivors, 3 dead. The mathematics of failure. Steele opened a folder on his desk. Classified markings covered the front in diagonal red stripes. Captain, I'm assigning you to a forward operating base in the Colorado Rockies. 6-person team, overwatch and surveillance mission. Enemy activity's been increasing in that sector. We need eyes on the ground. Understood, sir. This isn't a combat deployment. Observe and report. Nothing more. Yes, sir. He closed the folder, looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had softened, almost fatherly. You're a weapon, Captain Aldrich. One of the finest this country has ever produced. But weapons break, especially when they're used too hard for too long. I don't break, sir. Everyone breaks eventually. His eyes held hers. The question is whether you break in combat or after, and whether you take others with you when you do. She met his gaze without flinching. Gray eyes on gray eyes. Ice recognizing ice. Permission to speak freely, sir. Granted. Why I break doesn't matter. How I break doesn't matter. What matters is mission completion. I'll do my job. That's all I know how to do anymore. That's exactly what worries me. He stood, walked to the window. Rain blurred the glass, turning the bay into an impressionist painting. Your call sign is now official. Iron Wolf. It'll be your identifier in all operational contexts. She'd heard the nickname before. Whispered in ready rooms, muttered by men who'd seen her work and didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified. Iron because nothing bent her. Wolf because she hunted alone and left no survivors. Your team deploys in 72 hours. Steele continued without turning. Lieutenant Commander Garrett Blackwood will be your team leader. Good man, 20 years in. He'll handle tactics and command. You handle anything beyond 800 meters. Sir, he turned back to her. Nathaniel Mercer was a friend of mine. Knew him for 15 years. Good officer. Better man. And I know he wouldn't want you carrying this alone. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Just for a second. Just enough for Steele to notice and file away. He'd want you to live, Captain. Not just survive. There's a difference among. She stood, saluted with mechanical precision. Will that be all, sir? He returned the salute. Watched her turn toward the door. Captain. She stopped. Didn't turn around. The iron keeps you strong, but it also keeps you cold. Don't forget there's still a person in there somewhere. She walked out without responding. Down the corridor past offices where analysts typed and officers planned operations that would send young men and women into harm's way. Out into the December rain that felt like vindication. Like the world agreeing that everything should be cold and gray and empty. In her car, alone in the parking lot, she let out a single breath. Long, slow, controlled. Then she drove to Arlington National Cemetery. The headstone was simple, black granite, name, rank, dates of birth and death. No flowery epitaphs about duty or honor or sacrifice. Nathaniel wouldn't have wanted them. Evelyn knelt in the wet grass, placed her hand on the cold stone. Rain ran down her face. Could have been tears. Wasn't. They're making it official, she said quietly to the dead man who couldn't hear. Iron Wolf, you're doing probably. You always did talk too much in the after-action reports. The rain fell harder. She didn't move. Didn't care that water was soaking through her uniform. Didn't care about anything except the conversation she was having with a ghost. I should have saved you. Should have been faster. Should have put that first round through the commander's head instead of center mass. Half a second faster, and maybe you'd still be breathing. She stopped. Drew a breath that hurt her chest. Your son. You never told me you had a son. Didn't tell anyone on the team. Why were you afraid we'd think you had something to lose, that you'd be careful when you should have been brave? The stone offered no answers. Just her reflection in wet granite, a ghost staring back at a ghost. I'll keep doing the job. It's all I know how to do, all I'm good for now. Target acquisition, trigger pull, watch them fall, move to the next one. That's the whole of my existence. You'd probably tell me that's not enough, that I need to find something worth living for, instead of just finding new things to kill. But you're dead and I'm not, so I win the argument by default. She stood, saluted the grave with the same mechanical precision she'd given Steele. Walked back through the rain to her car. Behind her, the headstone read Lieutenant Nathaniel Mercer, 1985 to 2019. Faithful unto death, she didn't look back. Looking back was for people who still believed the past could be changed. The helicopter descended through low clouds 3 days later. Colorado stretched below mountains covered in fresh snow valleys, dark with pine forests, peaks that scraped the sky. Beautiful and lethal, like everything worth protecting. Evelyn sat in the vibrating cargo bay, her rifle case between her knees, her go bag secured to the bulkhead. Around her, the rest of the team made small talk. Nervous energy before deployment, the kind of chatter that filled silence and kept fear at bay. She recognized the pattern, had seen it 100 times, had participated in it once back when she still believed talking to people served a purpose. Lieutenant Commander Garrett Blackwood sat across from her. 42 years old, strong jaw that broadcast competence, calm eyes that had seen enough combat to know when to be afraid and when to trust training. The kind of officer men followed because they trusted him, not because they feared court-martial. Next to him, Staff Sergeant Winston Caldwell, 38, powerfully built, shoulders that looked like they could carry the world if someone asked nicely. 10 years in combat zones across 3 continents, hands that could crush bone or suture wounds with equal skill. Petty Officer Augustus Fleming, 35, medic, quiet, observant. The kind of man who noticed when someone was hurting and never mentioned it directly, but somehow made sure they got help anyway. Sergeant Finnegan O'Rourke, 33, communications specialist. Irish heritage he wore like a badge of honor. Always had a joke ready, never laughed at his own. The glue that held teams together when everything else was falling apart. And the 2 rookies, Corporal Thaddeus Mercer, 22 years old, fresh from advanced SEAL training, top of his class in marksmanship and land navigation. Eager, confident, alive with the kind of energy that came from never having watched friends bleed out in foreign dirt. Corporal Donovan Kane, 23, Thad's best friend since boot camp. Slightly shorter, slightly stockier, same fire in his eyes, same belief that training and courage could overcome anything. Neither of them knew who she was. Not really. They'd heard the name Iron Wolf, heard the stories that got bigger with each retelling. But stories weren't the same as reality. Stories didn't show you what it cost to become a legend, what you had to cut out of yourself to fit into the shape of a weapon. The helicopter touched down in a whirlwind of snow and rotor wash. The team grabbed gear and moved with practiced efficiency. Evelyn was last out, rifle case in one hand, bag in the other, moving like she had all the time in the world because rushing was for people who were afraid. The forward operating base was exactly what she'd expected. Reinforced bunker built into a hillside, defensive positions offering overlapping fields of fire, clear sight lines on all approaches, 50 miles from the nearest town, perfect isolation, perfect kill zone if things went wrong. Inside, the temperature barely qualified as warm. A single heater rattled in the corner like an asthmatic trying to breathe. Someone had strung up tinsel in a half-hearted gesture toward Christmas cheer. In 2 days, it would be Christmas Eve. The thought meant nothing to her. Holidays were for people who still had homes to go to. The team stowed gear, established sleeping areas, checked equipment with the ritualistic thoroughness of professionals who knew that details kept you alive. Standard deployment routine. Evelyn found a corner away from the others, set down her case, began field stripping her rifle with movements so practiced they didn't require conscious thought. She worked in silence, methodical, each piece of the weapon coming apart in her hands like an old friend undressing. Bolt, chamber, trigger assembly. She cleaned each component with a cloth that smelled like gun oil and 4 years of grief. Across the bunker, she heard voices, low at first, then louder, conspiratorial in the way young men get when they think they're being funny. So where's this Iron Wolf supposed to be, Thad Mercer? Loud enough for everyone to hear. Testing boundaries, establishing his place in the pecking order. Donovan Kane grinned. She could hear it in his voice. Probably hiding. With a name like that, got to be compensating for something. A few chuckles, not from the veterans. Winston kept his eyes down, suddenly very interested in his ammunition count. Finnegan found his radio fascinating. Garrett's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Officers had to let men blow off steam, had to let them make their mistakes before correcting them. Evelyn continued cleaning her rifle. Didn't look up, didn't react. The conversation meant nothing. They were children playing at being soldiers. Soon enough, they'd learn the difference. Iron Wolf, Donovan continued, warming to his theme. Sounds like something from a video game. Probably gave it to herself. You know how that works. Make yourself sound tough on paper, hope nobody actually checks. Thad snorted. Or it's one of those diversity picks, you know. Gotta have the female representation. Check the box. Make the recruiting posters look good. The words hung in the cold air. Evelyn's hands never stopped moving. Cloth in small circles on the bolt. Remove carbon. Check for wear. Continue. I mean, no disrespect. Thad added, though his tone suggested otherwise. The tone of someone who thought saying no offense made the offense disappear. But this is SEALs. Standards are standards. A sniper's got to be able to carry their own weight. Handle the pressure. Combat's not a training simulation where you get to reset if you die. Exactly, Donovan agreed. Out here, people die when someone can't perform. When someone's more worried about making history than making shots. I just hope whoever Iron Wolf is, they're actually qualified, not just checking a demographic box. Winston Caldwell looked up. His jaw worked like he was chewing words he wanted to spit but couldn't. He said nothing. Experience had taught him that some lessons had to be learned the hard way. Evelyn's hands continued their work. Bolt, chamber, trigger assembly, cloth moving in practice patterns. Her face showed nothing. After 4 years of carrying dead men in her head, 2 rookies with opinions were barely worth acknowledging. Garrett finally spoke. Quiet, measured. The voice of command wrapped in courtesy. You might want to stop talking. Why? Thad asked, still confident. Still certain the world worked the way his training manual said it did. We're just being real. This isn't the place for politics or social experiments. Garrett nodded toward the corner where Evelyn sat in shadow. That's her. That's Iron Wolf. The temperature in the bunker seemed to drop 10 degrees. Thad and Donovan turned slowly. Evelyn sat in shadow, still cleaning her scope, still showing no reaction whatsoever to anything they'd said. She could have been deaf for all the acknowledgement she gave them. That's her. Donovan's voice had lost its confidence, lost the certainty that came from being 23 and invincible. Captain Evelyn Aldridge, Garrett said. Each word crisp, educational. 8 years active duty, 4 years before that in Marine Corps Scout Sniper Program. Callsign Iron Wolf, 47 confirmed kills in combat situations. Those are just the ones that aren't classified. Want to know how many unconfirmed? Neither do I. The number's probably classified higher than my clearance. Thad's face flushed red. We were just... Evelyn looked up for the first time. Her eyes were gray, the color of winter storms, the color of things that killed you without malice or mercy. She held his gaze for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to let him know she'd heard every word, long enough to let him know she didn't care. Then she returned to her scope. She hadn't said a single word. Donovan tried to recover, tried to find solid ground in a conversation that had collapsed beneath him. Look, we didn't mean anything personal. It's just, combat's intense, high stress. We need to trust everyone on the team. Still nothing from Evelyn, just the quiet sound of cloth on metal, patient, eternal. Winston shook his head slowly. You two just made a mistake. Not the mistake you think. The real mistake was assuming silence means weakness, assuming that someone who doesn't need to talk is someone who can't back up their reputation. We should apologize. Thad started to move toward her. Don't. Garrett stopped him with a hand on his chest. She heard you. She knows how you feel. Approaching her now makes it worse. Just sit down and shut up and maybe learn something. The rest of the evening passed in uncomfortable silence. The team ate cold rations, checked defensive positions, established watch rotations. Standard pre-mission routine. Professional, efficient, completely devoid of the camaraderie that usually develop between operators. Evelyn never joined them. She stayed in her corner, working on her rifle like it was a religious ceremony, testing the scope, checking ammunition, each bullet examined under a small flashlight, each one perfect because anything less was unacceptable. Dawn came gray and bitter, the kind of cold that made bones ache and breath freeze in crystalline clouds. Garrett called everyone outside for a training exercise. Team cohesion drill, shake off the rust from transport. Make sure everyone could actually shoot straight, standard procedure before operations commenced. They set up targets at various distances, 200 meters, 400, 600. Evelyn watched from the bunker entrance. Didn't participate. Wasn't asked to. The men had something to prove. Let them prove it. Thad went first. He was good, genuinely skilled. Hit 19 out of 20 targets across all ranges. Only missed one at 600 meters. Wind calculation error. Understandable. Forgivable. Not bad, Augustus Fleming commented from the side. Navy training at work. Best in the world, Thad said with the satisfaction of someone who'd never tested that belief against reality. Donovan took his turn, 17 out of 20. Still solid, still professional. The veterans went next. Winston hit 20 out of 20 with the mechanical precision of someone who'd been doing this longer than the rookies had been alive. Garrett got 18, freely admitting his eyes weren't what they used to be at distance and making a joke about getting old that nobody laughed at because it was true. Evelyn remained at the bunker entrance, rifle slung across her back, watching something in the distance. A bird, perhaps, or wind patterns across the snow, or the shape of violins that hadn't arrived yet but would. Donovan called out, What about Iron Wolf? She going to show us how it's done? Or is the legend camera shy? Evelyn didn't respond, still watching the horizon like it held secrets. Thad walked over to her, emboldened by his performance, confident in his skills. Captain Aldridge, you want to take a turn? We'd all like to see the legendary Iron Wolf in action. Live demonstration beats reputation every time. She glanced at him briefly. No. Come on, he pressed, still smiling, still thinking this was friendly. Just a few shots. Show us how the pros do it. Give us something to aspire to. No need, Donovan joined them, sensing weakness that wasn't there. What you don't want to embarrass us, afraid you might miss in front of the new guys. That drew chuckles from both rookies. Not from the veterans. They knew better, had seen this before. Had learned that the quiet ones were quiet for a reason. Evelyn's expression didn't change. I don't shoot for practice. Everyone needs practice, Thad argued. Even the best, even legends. That's basic military doctrine. Skills degrade without maintenance. I practice when I need to confirm zero after equipment changes or test new ammunition loads. Today I don't need to do either. Or, Donovan said, his tone turning challenging, stepping over a line he didn't know existed. Maybe the legend's a little overblown. Maybe you're just another decent sniper who got lucky a few times and got a cool call sign out of it. Happens all the time. The wind picked up. Snow swirled between them like the universe itself was uncomfortable with what was happening. Garrett stepped forward. That's enough. Get back to... No, Evelyn interrupted quietly. It's fine. She looked at Donovan, really looked at him. Let him see the gray eyes and the emptiness behind them. You think I can't shoot? I think everyone should prove themselves. Reputation doesn't mean much if you can't back it up. Not trying to be disrespectful, just being real. We need to trust each other out here, and trust comes from demonstrated competence. Evelyn was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. All right, set up a target. Thad grinned. 600 meters, same as everyone else. No, 1,200 meters. The grin faded like snow in sunlight. 1,200, that's more than double the distance. That's extreme range. Too far for you. No, that's sniper competition distance. Wind's going to be a major factor. Temperature, mirage, that's not a fair comparison to what we just set up the target. Winston and Augustus exchanged glances. They'd seen this before. Evelyn didn't make challenges lightly, didn't waste energy on demonstrations unless there was a lesson that needed teaching. It took 15 minutes to haul a target frame out to 1,200 meters. Two team members trudging through snow that came up to their knees. A lot of cursing that carried on the wind. When they radioed back confirmation, the target looked impossibly small. Even through binoculars, it was barely visible. A speck against white. Evelyn unslung her rifle. Checked the chamber with practiced efficiency. Checked the scope with the same care a surgeon might check a scalpel. She didn't use any additional equipment. No laser rangefinder to measure exact distance. No ballistic calculator to compute firing solutions. No wind meter to measure gusts. Just her eyes and her experience, and 4 years of doing nothing but this. She lay prone on the frozen ground, settled into position with the patience of stone. Her breathing slowed, became measured, almost meditative. Everyone watched in silence. Even Thad and Donovan had stopped talking. There was something in her stillness that demanded attention, something that said this was more than shooting. This was craft, art, religion. She didn't fire. 30 seconds passed, a minute. The cold seeped into everyone watching, made them shift their weight, made them uncomfortable. What's she waiting for? Donovan whispered. Wind, Winston replied just as quietly. It's gusting 15 to 20 miles per hour. She's reading the patterns, looking for the lull between gusts. At 1,200 meters, wind drift can push a bullet 3 feet left or right. She needs the perfect moment. 2 minutes? 3. The cold became painful. Fingers went numb, toes lost feeling. Still, Evelyn didn't fire, didn't move except to breathe. Then her finger moved. A single shot cracked through the cold air. The sound echoed off the mountains and came back changed. Smaller, less significant than it should have been. Through the binoculars, Augustus watched the target. Hit, dead center. Thad's eyes widened. That was impressive. But one shot doesn't necessarily... Evelyn fired again. Then again, 4 more shots in smooth succession, each one within seconds of the last. No adjustment between shots. No pause to recalculate. Just fire, 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 like breathing. All hits, Augustus reported. His voice had changed, had gone quiet with something like awe. Grouping within 5 inches. At 1,200 meters, in 15-mile-per-hour crosswind, with temperature at -12 Celsius. The team stood in stunned silence. Even the wind seemed to have stopped to acknowledge what they'd witnessed. Evelyn stood up, brushed snow from her jacket with the same casual efficiency she did everything. I don't shoot for practice, I shoot to kill, and at 1,200 meters I don't miss. She walked back toward the bunker without waiting for response, without acknowledging the looks, without caring that she'd just done something most snipers couldn't do on their best day with perfect conditions. Thad found his voice first. That was, I've never seen anyone. Now you know, Garrett said quietly. That's why she's Iron Wolf. That's why she doesn't need to prove anything. The reputation isn't overblown. If anything, it's understated because half of what she's done is still classified. Donovan swallowed hard. How many people can make those shots in the world? Maybe 50, Winston said. In combat conditions, under stress with wind and cold, and people shooting back at you with your friends dying around you. He shook his head. Maybe 10, maybe less, maybe just her. And she just did it like it was nothing. To her, it is nothing. That's the difference between good and legendary. Good shooters can hit targets under perfect conditions. Legendary shooters can hit targets in conditions that shouldn't be survivable. The truly legendary ones do it while carrying wounds, operating on no sleep, fighting in sandstorms, protecting teammates who are counting on them not to miss. Captain Aldridge has done all of that, multiple times. They walked back to the bunker in silence. Inside, Evelyn had returned to her corner, cleaning her rifle again, each motion economical, practiced. She never looked at them, never acknowledged that anything had happened. To her, it hadn't. Just another day. Just another demonstration that skills spoke louder than words. Thad approached slowly, like approaching a wild animal that might bolt or attack. Captain Aldridge, I wanted to apologize. What I said before was out of line. I was ignorant and disrespectful, and I'm sorry. She turned her head slightly, those cold gray eyes. Save it. You'll need your focus for what's coming. It was the first time she'd spoken since arriving. 4 words. That was all. 4 words that somehow contained more weight than all of Thad's apology. The radio crackled at 1400 hours. Priority message from command. The static-filled voice that meant someone far away had decided their lives were about to get complicated. Garrett grabbed the handset. Overwatch, this is base. Send traffic. Static. Then a voice made tinny by distance and encryption. Be advised, SIGINT has intercepted enemy communications indicating planned offensive operations in your sector. Timeline uncertain, numbers uncertain, but they know you're there. They know your position. Someone talked, or someone watched, or someone got lucky, but you're compromised. Everyone was awake now, fully alert. The comfortable routine of deployment shattered by reality's insistence on being complicated. What's our air support status? Garrett asked, already knowing the answer, already seeing the shape of the problem. Negative. Weather front moving in. No rotary wing for next 18 to 24 hours. Fixed wing is grounded due to icing conditions. You're on your own until the storm passes. Hunker down, defend and pay and survive. Garrett's jaw tightened. Understood. Overwatch out. He lowered the handset, looked at his team. 6 people isolated in the mountains with an unknown enemy force that knew exactly where they were. You heard. We're staying. Could be nothing. Could be a major assault. We prepare for worst case. Check your equipment. Load magazines. Make peace with whatever god you pray to. Evelyn was already moving. She'd been awake the entire conversation. Had probably been awake all night because sleep was something other people needed. She began gathering her gear with practiced efficiency. Extra magazines, water, cold weather clothing, everything she'd need to survive on that ridge for however long this took. Iron Wolf, Garrett called. Where are you setting up? She pointed to a ridge about 400 meters west of their position. Exposed, dangerous, zero cover from the elements. A position that would kill most people through exposure before combat even started. That's insane, Donovan blurted out. You'll freeze out there. The temperature's dropping to -20 tonight, and you'll be completely vulnerable. No cover from fire or weather. Evelyn looked at him. That's why they won't expect it. They'll assume we keep our sniper close, protected, comfortable. So I'll be where they're not looking. She moved toward the door. Garrett called after her. Wait, at least take someone with you, a spotter. 2 sets of eyes, Captain, that's basic. I work alone. She paused at the door, turned back. Let them see her face. I'll radio if I see anything. If shooting starts, keep their heads down. I'll handle everything beyond 300 meters. Then she was gone, swallowed by the storm that was building outside, by the cold that had already claimed her years ago. The bunker felt emptier without her, colder somehow, despite her barely having made a sound or taken up much space. It was like a piece of the foundation had been removed, and now they were all waiting to see if the structure would hold. She's really going out there, Thad asked, alone in this weather for how long? She's done worse, Augustus said. Much worse. This is nothing to her. But why that position? It's so exposed. It's perfect, Winston interrupted. She'll have line of sight on every approach vector. Anyone coming at us has to cross open ground. She'll see them before they see her. She'll kill them before they know she's there. In this storm, visibility's going to be almost zero. Winston smiled grimly. Kid Iron Wolf doesn't need to see them. She can feel them. It's like she can sense violence before it happens. I've seen it a dozen times. Seen her set up on positions that made no sense, and then exactly where she was looking, that's where the enemy came from. She knows. Don't ask me how. Maybe it's training. Maybe it's instinct. Maybe she's just better at reading terrain than anyone else. But she knows. Outside, the storm intensified. Wind howled like something alive and angry. Snow came in sheets that turned the world into an undifferentiated white void where direction became meaningless. Somewhere in that chaos, Evelyn was taking position, setting up her rifle, becoming part of the landscape. Invisible, patient, waiting. Because she knew what was coming. She always knew. Night fell early in the mountains. By 1800 hours, full darkness had consumed the world. The storm showed no signs of breaking. If anything, it grew worse. Visibility dropped to nothing. Temperature plummeted to -18 and kept falling. Inside the bunker, the team maintained watch rotations. 2 hours on, 4 hours off. Eyes straining against the darkness through firing ports that showed only white and more white. Waiting for something. Anything. The anticipation was worse than combat. Combat at least had the virtue of ending one way or another. At 0347, the same cursed time Phantom Gate had gone to hell. 4 years earlier, the radio crackled. Evelyn's voice. Quiet, calm, professional. Overwatch, this is Iron Wolf, in position. Nothing moving yet. Weather deteriorating fast. Visibility down to maybe 300 meters and dropping. Temperature -22. Wind gusting to 30 miles per hour. Copy that, Iron Wolf, Garrett replied. Report any changes. How are you holding up out there? Fine, a lie. Had to be a lie. Nobody was fine in those conditions. But Evelyn had stopped admitting weakness 4 years ago. Roger, out. The team settled in, waiting. The heater rattled its asthmatic song. Someone's watch beeped the hour. The bunker creaked under the weight of wind and snow and time. At 0430, Evelyn's voice cut through again. Different this time. Sharper. The voice of someone who'd seen the thing they were waiting for. Contact. Multiple hostiles. Northeast approach. Approximately 1 kilometer out. Can't confirm numbers through this snow, but they're coming. Formation movement. This isn't a patrol. This is an assault force. Garrett keyed the mic. How many? Unknown. But they're moving in disciplined formation, using terrain for cover. These aren't militia. This is professional movement, military training. Can you get a count? Negative, not yet, but Overwatch? A pause. There's a lot of them. The bunker went silent. Everyone exchanged glances. The rookies looked scared. The veterans looked grim. Garrett looked like a man doing calculations he didn't like the answer to. Iron Wolf, stand by, Garrett said. He switched frequencies. Command, this is Overwatch. We have visual confirmation of hostile forces approaching our position. Request immediate fire support. Static. Then the voice that killed hope. Overwatch, negative on fire support. Weather has everything grounded. Artillery is standing by, but effectiveness in this weather will be minimal. You are weapons free to engage defensively. Hold your position. Survive until extraction is possible. Understood. Overwatch out. He looked at his team. All right, this is it. Everyone to positions. Thad Donovan, you're on the north wall. Winston Augustus, you've got east and west. Finnegan, keep that radio alive. We need comms. I'll float and plug holes. Nobody fires until I give the word or until they fire first. We want every shot to count. Ammunition discipline is critical. Questions? None. Just men checking weapons, loading magazines, controlling breathing. This was real now, not training, not simulation. Real bullets, real death, real chance they'd never see home again. Evelyn's voice came through, still calm, like she was reading a weather report instead of counting an approaching army. Overwatch, getting better visual. Count at least 42 hostiles, possibly more behind them in the storm. They're moving slowly, using the storm as cover. Very professional. ETA to your position, approximately 15 minutes. Copy that, Garrett replied. Can you engage? Negative. Range is still too far and conditions are too poor. I'd give away my position without guarantee of kills. I'll wait until they're closer, let them commit, then I'll start working. Roger, keep us posted. The minutes crawled by, each one an eternity compressed into 60 seconds. The team waited, weapons ready, hearts pounding, mouths dry despite the cold. This was the moment every warrior trained for and hoped would never come. The moment when all the practice became real and real became deadly. At 0445, everything changed. The unmistakable crack of a rifle shot cut through the storm. Clear, sharp, final. Then another, then another. Evelyn had engaged. The battle had begun. The first hostile dropped before he understood what was happening. One moment advancing through the snow in disciplined formation, the next moment down, red spreading across white like ink and water. Evelyn's voice crackled over the radio, flat, professional, emotionless as mathematics. First target eliminated. Commander north side at 300 meters. They're regrouping, but they don't know where the shot came from. Second target engaging. Through her scope, she tracked movement, watched how they moved, read their training and the way they sought cover. Former military. Definitely. The way they responded to threat told her everything. These weren't random insurgents. These were professionals. The enemy returned fire. Wild at first, desperate. Shooting at shadows in storm and the ghost of violence. Bullets sparked off rocks 200 meters from her actual position. They had no idea where she was. That advantage wouldn't last forever, but she'd use it while she could. She worked methodically. Each target selected. Each shot calculated. Wind, distance, temperature, movement. The mathematics of death reduced to trigger pull and breathing. The bunker erupted with defensive fire. Thad and Donovan poured rounds toward muzzle flashes. Winston and Augustus covered the flanks with controlled bursts. Finnegan stayed on the radio calling updates to command that probably nobody was hearing through the storm. Evelyn continued her work from the ridge. Patient, relentless, economical with ammunition because she had to be. Each bullet examined before loading. Each shot deliberate. No spray and pray, no panic fire, just the steady accumulation of dead enemies. A hostile got within 50 meters of the bunker, sprinting through the snow with the kind of courage that came from believing in your mission. Donovan tracked him, fired. The man went down in a spray of snow and blood. Good shot, Garrett called, but more are coming. Conserve ammunition. Make every round count. More kept coming. For every one they dropped, 2 more appeared from the storm, like the universe was spawning enemies from the void itself. The enemy had numbers. They were using them, trading lives for ground. Professional tactics that spoke of training and commitment. Through her scope, Evelyn saw it happening, saw the pattern, saw how they moved and knew what it meant. They're trying to flank east side. 3 hostiles moving through the ravine, 200 meters out. Winston, you'll have them in 30 seconds. Winston swung his weapon. I see them. Take them, Garrett ordered. Winston fired in controlled bursts. Professional, economical. 2 hostiles went down. The third made it to cover behind a rock formation that the weather had carved into a natural bunker. Third hostile pinned, Winston reported. Can't get an angle without exposing myself. Iron Wolf, Garrett queried. I could have angle from here, Evelyn responded, her voice showing the first hint of frustration. He's in my dead zone. You'll have to wait him out or maneuver. The hostile moved, trying to improve his position. Winston was ready, fired, hit. Good kill, Evelyn said. Then Overwatch, I'm seeing more movement behind the first wave. They're not committing everyone. This is a probing attack. They're testing our strength. The real assault comes later when they know what we have. Thad felt his stomach drop. How many total are we looking at? Garrett's voice was tight with controlled stress. Too many. But we hold. We've got superior position, superior cover, and the best damn sniper in the military watching our backs. We can do this. We have to do this. The firefight intensified. The enemy probed for weak points like a predator testing prey. They'd fire from one position, then shift, trying to draw a return fire and identify the bunker's firing ports, trying to find the pattern, trying to understand how the defense was structured so they could break it. They're coordinating, Winston observed. I'm seeing hand signals, fire and movement, bounding Overwatch. This isn't militia. These guys have serious training. Notice that too, Garrett agreed. They're using proper infantry tactics. Someone's commanding them. Someone who knows what they're doing. Evelyn's voice cut through. Found their leader. North side behind the large boulder at 400 meters. He's directing movement with hand signals. Spetsnaz tactical language. Russian special forces. Garrett's blood went cold. Spetsnaz, you're sure? Positive I recognize the pattern. I've seen it before. Can you take the shot? Difficult angle, lots of wind. He's only exposed for seconds at a time when he gives signals. It's possible, but not guaranteed. Your call, you're the expert. Silence on the radio. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Through her scope, Evelyn watched the commander. Studied his pattern, memorized the rhythm. Move, signal, duck. Move, signal, duck. Like clockwork. 4 seconds exposed, 6 seconds covered. Professional discipline that came from years of training. She waited. The cold seeped into her bones through the frozen ground. Made her joints stiff. Made her fingers slow. She ignored it. Focused on the pattern. On the mathematics. On the single moment when everything would align. The commander moved into position. Started his signal sequence. Hand up. Pointing. Directing. Evelyn fired. The shot caught him mid-gesture. Through the scope, she watched his head snap back. Watched him collapse behind the boulder like someone had cut his strings. He never finished his signal. Target down, she reported. Leadership neutralized. The effect was immediate. The enemy's coordination faltered. Their fire became less organized, more panicked. They were still numerous, still dangerous, still trying to kill everyone in the bunker. But they'd lost their nerve, lost their confidence, started making mistakes. Press them, Garrett ordered. Don't let them regroup. Keep the pressure on while they're disorganized. The SEALs increased their rate of fire. Not wasteful, still controlled, but aggressive, pushing, forcing the enemy to make decisions faster than they wanted to. Hostiles began falling back, dragging wounded, seeking cover. The storm provided escape routes, but it also hid Iron Wolf's continued harassment. Every time the enemy tried to reorganize, another one dropped. Evelyn was breaking their will as much as their assault, making them understand that there was death on that ridge. Death that saw through storm and darkness. Death that never missed. Then Thad saw something that made his blood run cold. Contact rear. They got around us. 3 hostiles had used the chaos and storm to circle around to the bunker's south side. The least defended approach. The weakness in the defensive plan. They were within 30 meters and closing fast with the kind of speed that came from knowing you were close to success. Donovan swung around, but his angle was wrong. The bunker's design meant he couldn't get a clear shot without exposing himself to fire from the north. He couldn't protect both directions at once. I can't, he started. The lead hostile raised what looked like a grenade, the kind that could end everything if it got through one of the firing ports, the kind that turned defensive positions into tombs. Evelyn's voice was sharp, urgent, the first real emotion she'd shown. Overwatch, I don't have line of sight on your rear. The bunker's blocking my angle. You need to... The hostile's arm came back to throw. Thad made a decision, grabbed his sidearm, burst through the bunker door into the storm, fired 3 rapid shots while moving. Not textbook perfect, not range qualified, pretty, just desperate and fast and close enough. The hostile dropped. The grenade fell from his hand, detonated 10 meters away instead of 3. The blast threw Thad backward into the snow. His ears rang, his vision swam. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate, wouldn't remember what standing was for. The other 2 hostiles turned toward him, raised their weapons. He could see down the barrels, could see the moment of his own death approaching. This was it. This was how it ended. In the snow, in the dark, far from home. 2 shots rang out. Both hostiles dropped simultaneously. Winston appeared through the storm like an avenging spirit, weapon smoking. He'd followed Thad out. Had his back because that's what brothers did. Get inside, you idiot. Winston grabbed Thad by his vest and hauled him back through the door with strength that came from pure adrenaline. Inside, Thad collapsed against the wall. His hands were shaking. He'd almost died. Would have died. The certainty of it was crushing. Overwatch status. Evelyn's voice was tense, concerned, the most human she'd sounded since arriving. We're good, Garrett replied. 2 hostiles down on south approach. Thad made a brave, stupid play, but we're intact, nobody seriously wounded. Enemies falling back, Evelyn reported. They're withdrawing to the north. I'm tracking them, but they're using the storm. Count approximately 17 still mobile. We dropped at least 25 confirmed. Maybe more that they carried off. Let them go, Garrett ordered. Don't pursue. Everyone cease fire. Hold positions. Conserve what ammunition we have left. The shooting stopped. The silence that followed was eerie, broken only by wind and Thad's heavy breathing and the ringing in everyone's ears from sustained gunfire in enclosed spaces. Garrett moved to Thad. You okay? Yeah, I think so. That was close. That was incredibly reckless. You never leave cover during a firefight unless ordered or unless there's absolutely no other option. I know, I screwed up. I just saw that grenade and You saved us, Donovan interrupted quietly. If that grenade had gotten inside, we'd all be dead or wounded. So yeah, it was reckless. Violated every tactical principle we were taught. But it worked. You're alive. We're alive. That's what matters. Garrett nodded slowly. All right, Augustus, check our perimeter. Make sure they're really gone and not just regrouping. Winston, ammunition count. I need to know exactly what we have left. Donovan, help Thad get his hearing back and make sure he's not concussed. I need to report to command. As the team worked, Garrett keyed the radio to Evelyn's frequency. Iron Wolf, you still good out there? Affirmative. Took some hits to my position, but nothing penetrated. Rocks chipped up pretty good, but it's holding. I'm cold but functional. How's your ammunition? 28 rounds remaining, enough for another engagement if they come back. But it needs to count. Can't afford to miss. Think they will come back. A pause. Long enough that Garrett started to repeat the question. Then, not tonight, we hurt them badly. They'll need time to reorganize. Treat their wounded, report back to whoever's us in charge. Count their dead and decide if we're worth it. But they know where we are now. They know our approximate strength. They'll come again. With more people next time. And better tactics. They'll learn from this. Garrett closed his eyes, did the math that commanders had to do. How long until they regroup? Best guess 24 to 48 hours. Maybe less if they're more motivated than I think. Maybe more if they're smarter. But they'll come. People don't lose 25 men and walk away. Pride won't let them. Whoever's commanding this operation has too much invested to quit now. Okay, hold position for another 2 hours. Make sure they're really gone. Then come back to the bunker. You need to warm up and rest. Negative, I'll stay out here. Better early warning if they try something unexpected. Better. That's an order, Captain. Garrett's voice was firm. 2 hours, then you're coming in. You can't protect us if you freeze to death on that ridge. I've already lost enough good people in my career. I'm not adding you to the list because you're too stubborn to admit you have limits. Reluctant silence. Evelyn hated admitting weakness. Hated admitting that she was human and subject to the same physical constraints as everyone else. But orders were orders. Roger, 2 hours, then I'm coming in. Inside the bunker, the team processed what had just happened. Their first real firefight. People trying to kill them. People they'd killed in return. The abstract concept of combat made concrete in muzzle flashes and blood in the snow. Thad stared at his hands. They were still shaking. Wouldn't stop no matter how hard he tried to control them. Donovan sat beside him. First time's always the worst. The shaking will stop eventually. Does it get easier? No, but you get better at handling it, better at functioning while scared, better at doing your job even when every instinct says run. Winston approached with a canteen. Drink. You're probably in shock. Water helps ground you. Thad took it gratefully. The water was ice cold, but it helped. Helped remind him he was alive. Helped give him something to focus on besides the memory of looking down gun barrels. I froze up, he admitted. When I saw those guys behind us, I didn't think. I just reacted. Training took over. I don't even remember making the decision to go outside. Sometimes that's all you can do, Winston said. Thinking gets you killed. Training takes over. Muscle memory, pattern recognition. You did what needed doing. That's what matters. But if you hadn't come out after me, I had your back. That's what teams do. You had ours with that grenade. We had yours with those hostiles. That's how we survive. Together, watching each other, trusting each other. Through the storm, they could hear nothing. No gunfire, no movement, just wind and snow and the universe being indifferent to human struggle. The enemy was gone. For now. But everyone knew they'd be back. And next time they'd be ready for Iron Wolf. 2 hours later, Evelyn returned to the bunker. She moved like a ghost through the storm, appearing in the doorway without sound or warning. Several team members jumped. You couldn't hear her coming, couldn't see her approaching. She just appeared. She was covered in snow, her jacket crusted with ice. Her face was pale from the cold, lips slightly blue, frost on her eyebrows. But her eyes were alert, focused, still scanning, still watching. Jesus, Captain, Augustus said. You look hypothermic. You need to get warm immediately. I'm fine. But her voice was rougher than usual, strained. The cold had gotten to her, even if she wouldn't admit it. Winston immediately moved to help her with her gear. Sit, warm up. We've got coffee. Actual coffee, not the instant crap. Augustus made it. Later, need to clean my rifle first. Condensation from the temperature change could cause... I'll do it, Winston interrupted. I know how you like it done. You need to warm up before you lose fingers. Frostbite is starting on your left hand. I can see it. Evelyn hesitated, looked at her hand. The fingers were white, barely mobile. She hadn't even noticed. That was bad. That meant the cold had gotten deeper than she'd thought. She nodded, sat near the heater, slowly peeled off her frozen gloves with fingers that didn't want to bend. Her hands were white, blood flow compromised. She'd been out there too long. Garrett brought coffee in a metal cup that was almost too hot to hold. Drink, that's an order too. She took the cup with stiff fingers, wrapped both hands around it. The heat was probably painful, but she didn't show it. Just held the cup and let the warmth seep in slowly, bringing dead things back to life 1 degree at a time. Thad watched her from across the bunker. She'd been out there for hours in conditions that would kill most people. She'd protected them, saved them, without hesitation or complaint. Had killed more than 20 people to keep them alive. Captain Aldridge, he said quietly. She looked up, gray eyes that had seen too much and felt too little. Thank you for out there. You saved all of us, multiple times. We'd be dead without you. Evelyn was silent for a moment. That's my job. It's more than that. You didn't have to take that position. You didn't have to stay out there when it got dangerous. You chose to. You put yourself in harm's way so we'd be safer. That's more than just doing a job. She took a sip of coffee, let it burn down her throat. Yes, Donovan joined in. What he's trying to say is, we were wrong about you, about everything we said. We were ignorant and disrespectful, and we judged you before we knew anything. We're sorry, truly sorry. Evelyn's gray eyes moved between them. You were scared. Fear makes people say stupid things. It's forgiven. Out here, grudges are a luxury we can't afford. You fought well today. Better than I expected for your first real engagement. That's what matters now. Just like that, Thad asked. You forgive us that easily. Yes, because I need you functional. Need you focused. Need you able to do your job without being distracted by guilt or shame. So yes, just like that. It's forgotten. Garrett had been listening quietly. Speaking of which, we need to debrief while it's fresh. Iron Wolf, your assessment of the enemy force. Evelyn set down her coffee. Her professional mask slipped back into place like a door closing. 42 hostiles total. We eliminated 27 confirmed. 15 withdrew under discipline, bringing wounded. They were organized, disciplined, well-equipped, not militia, not insurgents, professional military or former military. Almost certainly Spetsnaz or Spetsnaz trained. The hand signals were Russian Special Forces doctrine. The movement patterns were right out of their tactical manual. Any idea what they wanted? Winston asked. Us dead, primarily, but I think this was also reconnaissance in force. They were testing our strength, our response time, our capabilities, seeing if we'd call for air support, checking our ammunition discipline, professional force assessment. Now they know we're here. They know how many we are approximately. They know we have significant defensive capabilities, including at least one very good sniper. They know we didn't call for air support, which might mean we can't, or might mean we're disciplined. They're processing all that data right now. But they don't know about you specifically, Garrett pointed out. They know there's a sniper. They don't know it's Iron Wolf. Evelyn nodded. True, they also don't know about our lack of air support. They probably assume we could have called in helicopters or airstrikes at any time. That's the only reason they withdrew when they did. They were afraid of reinforcements, afraid we were calling in artillery or fast movers. When those don't come, they'll realize we're truly isolated. And when they realize we're isolated, Augustus trailed off. They'll come back in greater numbers, Evelyn finished, with better tactics. They'll bring more heavy weapons. They'll coordinate better. They'll be ready for the sniper this time. They'll try to locate my position and suppress it. This was their probing attack. The real assault comes next. The bunker fell silent as everyone absorbed this. The implication was clear. This wasn't over. This was just beginning. How long do we have? Garrett asked the question everyone was thinking. If they're smart, they'll hit us tomorrow night. Christmas night, maximum psychological impact. And they'll have had time to bring in reinforcements, time to treat their wounded, time to plan properly. They won't make the same mistakes twice. Donovan laughed bitterly. Merry Christmas to us. Command needs to know, Garrett said. He moved to the radio, keyed the mic, got it only static. He tried again, adjusted frequencies. More static. Nothing but white noise and the hiss of electromagnetic emptiness. The storm's blocking our signal, Finnegan diagnosed after checking his equipment. Or something's jamming us. Either way, we're cut off. Can't reach command, can't call for help. We're on our own. Perfect, Thad muttered. Just perfect. Garrett looked at his team. 6 people, isolated, facing an enemy force that outnumbered them at least 3-1, possibly more, with no air support, no reinforcements, and now no communications. The nightmare scenario that every commander trained for and prayed would never happen. All right, he said, his voice calm, steady, the voice of leadership that people needed to hear even when the situation was deteriorating. New plan, we prepare for a siege. We ration our ammunition carefully. We fortify every weak point we can find. We rest in shifts. We stay sharp. And we survive until this storm breaks and we can reestablish communications. Questions. What if they hit us before then, Donovan asked. Then we make them regret it. We make them pay for every meter. We make this bunker the last place on Earth they want to be. We hold. That's all we can do. So that's what we'll do. The day passed in tense preparation. The team reinforced defensive positions with whatever materials they could scavenge, established fields of fire, and made sure everyone knew their sectors, pre-positioned ammunition and medical supplies where they'd be accessible under fire. Standard siege preparation. The kind of work that kept hands busy and minds from dwelling on odds that didn't favor survival. Evelyn slept exactly 4 hours, not because anyone ordered her to, but because she understood the mathematics of endurance. The body needed rest to function. The mind needed sleep to stay sharp, so she rested. When she woke, she was back on watch, silent, observant, always working, always watching. Night fell again, Christmas Eve bleeding into Christmas Day. The storm showed no signs of breaking. If anything, it intensified. Wind howled like tortured souls. Snow came in horizontal sheets that scoured exposed skin and made visibility almost zero. At 2200 hours, Evelyn stiffened at her observation post near the north firing port. Contact, she said quietly. Everyone snapped alert, grabbed weapons, moved to positions, the routine they'd practiced becoming real again. Where? Garrett demanded. Same approach as before, north side, but they're moving differently this time. More cautious, using cover better, bounding overwatch. They learned from the first assault. They're not making the same mistakes. How many Evelyn was silent, counting, calculating, trying to see through storm and darkness to the truth of what was coming. At least 50, maybe more behind them. I can't get a solid count through this weather. And Garrett, her voice changed, became harder, more focused. They've got heavy weapons. I'm seeing what looks like RPGs, maybe mortars. They brought serious firepower this time. The temperature in the bunker seemed to drop another 10 degrees. If they hit us with RPG, Thad started, didn't finish, didn't need to. Everyone understood. RPGs could punch through concrete, could turn their fortress into a tomb. These walls will hold, Garrett said with more confidence than he felt. They're reinforced, built to withstand exactly this kind of assault. But we need to take out those heavy weapons before they get in range. Iron Wolf, can you engage the RPG teams? I can try, Evelyn said, but it's dark, stormy, and they're staying in cover. Professional discipline, the shot's going to be difficult. How difficult? Possible, not probable, maybe 30% chance of first round hit. Take it anyway. If those RPGs get within range, our odds drop to 0. 30% is better than nothing. Roger. Evelyn adjusted her position at the firing port, slowed her breathing into the combat rhythm she'd learned years ago. The RPG operator was approximately 600 meters out, moving between cover points in short bounds. Professional infantry tactics. He'd be exposed for maybe 2 seconds when he moved to the next position. 2 seconds in darkness and storm to make a shot that would determine whether they all lived or died. She waited, patient as stone, focused as a laser. The cold meant nothing, the storm meant nothing, the fear meant nothing. Only the shot mattered. Only the mathematics. The operator moved. Evelyn fired. Through the scope, she saw him stumble. Saw the RPG fall, hit but not fatally. He dropped the weapon and retreated, clutching his side. Not dead, but out of the fight. The RPG launcher lay abandoned in the snow. Target wounded, she reported. RPG's down, but operator is still mobile. Weapon is out of play. Good enough, Garrett said. That buys us time. Everyone stand ready. They're coming. But the enemy kept coming. They'd learned from the first assault. They were using the storm better, staying in cover longer, moving in smaller teams that were harder to track, coordinating their movement with discipline that spoke of serious training. They're getting close, Evelyn warned. They'll be in assault range within 5 minutes. Multiple teams approaching from 3 directions. This is a coordinated assault. Someone competent is running this operation. Garrett looked at his team. Everyone was scared. Everyone was exhausted. But everyone was ready. They'd proven themselves in the first fight. Now they had to do it again. All right, this is it. Iron Wolf's got our back. We hold this bunker. We make every shot count. And when the sun comes up, we're all going to be alive to see it. Understood. Yes, sir, came the unified response. The enemy advanced, shadows moving through snow, death approaching through darkness. Professional, patient, lethal. And then Evelyn's voice calm as always. Overwatch. They're in range, engaging now. The night exploded with gunfire and violence and the cold mathematics of combat. Evelyn worked her targets with methodical precision. Each shot calculated, no wasted ammunition. But there were so many, too many. For every one she dropped, 2 more appeared like the storm was spawning enemies from darkness itself. The team inside the bunker fought with controlled aggression. Every bullet counted, every shot had to matter because ammunition was finite and enemies seemed infinite. A hostile got within 20 meters. Winston dropped him with a perfect headshot. Another came from the east. Augustus took him down with a controlled burst that was textbook perfect. But they kept coming, wave after wave, coordinated, determined, professional. Someone was driving them hard. Someone who wanted this badly enough to trade lives for ground. Then Evelyn's scope found him. Through the storm and darkness, she saw the man directing the assault, standing behind cover using hand signals to coordinate his teams. And she recognized more than just the tactical style. She recognized the face, her breath caught. Colonel Dmitry Volkov, she knew that face. Had studied it in intelligence briefings 2 years ago. Viktor Volkov's older brother. The Spetsnaz commander whose younger brother she'd killed in Crimea had been hunting her ever since. And now he'd found her. The radio crackled. Open channel. Volkov wanted everyone to hear. Wanted them to know who was killing them. Iron Wolf. His voice carried a thick Russian accent wrapped around perfect English. 2 years I've waited for this. 2 years of hunting, of planning, of preparing. Victor died alone in Crimea, confused, afraid, bleeding out in foreign dirt. You killed my brother. Now I kill your family. He meant the team, her pack, the people she was protecting. Evelyn's finger tightened on the trigger, but Volkov ducked back into cover before she could fire. Smart. Professional. He knew she was out there, knew she was looking for him. You cannot win, his voice continued over the radio. I have 100 men. You have 6. I have time. You have none. I have reinforcements. You have nothing. You have no air support, no artillery, no rescue coming. You are alone, isolated, abandoned. He paused. Let that sink in. Surrender now. I will make it quick. For you, Iron Wolf. The others, they will suffer. For Victor, for the pain you caused my family, they will pay the price of your actions. Evelyn keyed her mic, didn't say anything, just fired a single shot. It hit the rock where Volkov had been standing, inches from his last position, close enough that he'd feel the crack of the supersonic round passing. Her response was clear. Come and try. Volkov's laughter came through the radio, cold, cruel, the laugh of someone who enjoyed this. So be it, Wolf. We do this the hard way. I will take my time. I will make you watch them going, one by one, and you will know that it is your fault, that your pride killed them, that you could have saved them if you had simply surrendered. The assault intensified, 50-plus hostiles pressing from multiple directions, coordinated suppression fire, advanced teams leapfrogging forward with professional discipline. This wasn't a mob. This was a military operation. They're pushing hard on the east side, Augustus reported, his voice tight with stress. I count at least 12 heading this direction. Evelyn swiveled, acquired targets. I see them, engaging. She fired. One down, another. But they were using better tactics now. Leapfrogging from cover to cover, using terrain, using the storm. She couldn't stop them all. They're going to breach your perimeter, she warned. East side, 8 hostiles within 50 meters. Let them get close, Garrett said. Grenades ready. Wait for my command. 6 hostiles made it within 30 meters of the bunker's east wall. They bunched up behind a large rock, preparing to rush the final distance. A mistake, the kind that came from eagerness overriding training. Now, Garrett ordered. Winston and Augustus threw grenades over the wall. The explosions were muffled by snow, but no less effective. The assault on that side collapsed in fire and shrapnel and screams. East side clear, Augustus reported, for now. But the north side was still under pressure. 10 to 12 hostiles were advancing under covering fire from others further back. Professional tactics, suppress and advance. Textbook infantry assault. North side needs help, Thad called out, his voice showing strain. They're getting close. Evelyn shifted back to the north. I've got them. Keep your heads down. I'm going to work fast. She began firing rapidly, pushing the limits of accuracy to increase rate of fire. Not every shot was a kill, but every shot forced the enemy to seek cover, slowed their advance, made them hesitate, made them afraid. I'm down to 18 rounds, she announced, a simple statement of fact that carried the weight of impending disaster. 18 rounds, 30 hostiles still mobile. The mathematics didn't work, couldn't work. Make them count, Garrett replied. What else could he say? They had what they had. No resupply was coming. Evelyn chose her targets carefully. Not the closest threats, not the immediate dangers. She targeted the shooters providing covering fire, the ones enabling the others to advance. Cut off the support and the advance would falter. Each shot deliberate, each target selected for maximum tactical impact. The covering fire decreased. The advancing hostiles found themselves exposed, unsupported, vulnerable. Push them, Garrett ordered. The bunker's fire intensified. Accurate, controlled, professional. Hostiles began falling back, dragging wounded, abandoning equipment, their momentum broken. Evelyn held her last 2 rounds in reserve. Watch the enemy withdraw, track their movement patterns, memorize faces she could see through the scope, building a catalog of targets for later, because there would be a later. Volkov wouldn't stop. They're falling back again, she reported. Count approximately 23 still mobile. They're moving northeast, back toward their staging area, regrouping for another attempt. Let them go, Garrett ordered. Cease fire. Save ammunition. We need every round we have left. The bunker fell silent. Outside, the only sounds were wind and the occasional cry of wounded enemies dragging themselves away through the snow. The sound of defeat. The sound of men who had learned that some targets cost too much. Thad slumped against the wall. We did it. We actually held. Again. Don't celebrate yet, Winston warned. They'll be back, probably sooner than we think. Affirmative, Evelyn agreed, her voice flat, professional. They've lost roughly 30 people in 2 engagements, but they're not breaking. Volkov is driving them, keeping them committed. This has become personal for him. It's not about the mission anymore. It's about revenge, about proving he can do what his brother couldn't. He won't stop until one of us is dead. She was right. An hour later, movement again. This time from a different direction, south where their defenses were weakest. Probing, testing, looking for the gap. They're trying to flank, Evelyn said. 6, maybe 7 hostiles, testing our rear. Professional reconnaissance. They're mapping our defensive layout. Can you engage? Garrett asked. Negative angle from here. I'd need to relocate. The bunker structure blocks my line of sight to the south approach. Then relocate, fast. Evelyn grabbed her rifle and last 2 magazines. Moved out of the bunker through the south door into the storm. The cold hit her like a physical blow. But she ignored it, ignored everything except the mission, the Grium, the mathematics of violence. She found a position behind a frozen boulder, 30 meters from the bunker, set up quickly with practiced efficiency. The approaching hostiles were visible now, moving cautiously through the snow. Professional movement. Careful. She fired. 1 down. But the other spotted her muzzle flash. Returned fire immediately. Rounds sparked off the boulder inches from her head. Too close, too accurate. Evelyn dropped prone, rolled to a new position, came up firing. Another hostile. Down. 3 left. They were flanking her now, trying to surround her individual position. This was bad. She was exposed, outnumbered. And they knew exactly where she was. The advantage had shifted. She fired again, missed as the hostile dove behind cover. 1 round left in the magazine. She dropped it, slammed in her last magazine. 10 rounds total, her final ammunition. Then she heard it, a sound that made her blood run cold. The distinctive metallic thump of a grenade launcher preparing to fire. She rolled left as the grenade exploded where she'd been lying. Shrapnel tore through the air. Something hit her leg. Hot and sharp like a branding iron. She bit back a cry, kept moving, couldn't stop. Stopping meant death. Dying meant failing. Failing meant they all died. 2 hostiles rushed her position while she was recovering from the blast. She fired twice. Both down. 1 hostile left. The one with the grenade launcher. He was reloading 20 meters away, taking his time, confident. She was wounded, pinned. He had all the advantages. Evelyn tried to stand. Her leg collapsed beneath her. The shrapnel wound was worse than she'd thought. Blood soaked through her pants, hot against the cold. Too much blood. She fell back into the snow. The hostile raised his launcher, smiled. Victory was seconds away. Then his head snapped back. He collapsed like someone had cut his strings. Thad appeared through the storm, rifle smoking, eyes wide. Thought you might need help. Evelyn nodded, unable to speak through gritted teeth in pain and the sudden realization that she'd almost died, that without Thad she'd be dead, that the predator had almost become prey. Thad moved to her, examined her leg with hands that shook slightly. That's bad, that's really bad. We need to get you inside. You're losing too much blood. Finish the perimeter first, Evelyn managed through the pain. Make sure there aren't more. Can't leave them alive behind us. Captain, you're bleeding. Finish the perimeter. Each word forced out, each word costing her. Thad hesitated, then nodded. He did a quick sweep, moved professionally despite his fear. Confirmed no other hostiles in the immediate area. Clear, he reported to Garrett over radio, but Iron Wolf's hit, bringing her in. He helped Evelyn to her feet. She kept weight off her injured leg, leaned on him heavily, more heavily than she wanted to admit, needing help, hating that she needed help. Thanks, she said quietly as they moved. Now we're even, Thad replied. For earlier, for the grenade, for saving my life. They made it back to the bunker. Augustus immediately began treating Evelyn's wound. The shrapnel had buried itself deep in her thigh muscle. Painful, bleeding significantly, limiting mobility, but not life-threatening if treated properly, if infection didn't set in, if she got proper medical care eventually. You got lucky, Augustus said as he worked, his hands steady and professional despite the circumstances. 2 inches higher and it would have hit your femoral artery. You'd have bled out in minutes. As it is, you're going to have limited mobility, won't be running any marathons. Don't feel lucky, Evelyn replied through clenched teeth as he probed the wound. Garrett knelt beside her. You did good out there. Hell, you did amazing. But you're done for tonight. That leg needs rest, needs treatment. You're not going back out. I can still shoot from a static position. You can rest. Winston will take over watch. You're going to let Augustus finish patching you up, and then you're going to rest. We'll need you again tomorrow. So don't argue. That's an order from your commanding officer. Evelyn wanted to argue anyway, wanted to insist she was fine, that she could keep going, that pain was just information and could be ignored. But the pain was catching up to her. The adrenaline was fading. She was exhausted, wounded, running on fumes and stubbornness and nothing else. 4 hours, she bargained weakly. 8. 6. Done. 6 hours. Then we'll see how you're doing. Augustus finished bandaging her leg. I've given you antibiotics to prevent infection and pain medication to make it bearable. The pain meds will make you drowsy. That's intentional. You need sleep. I don't want... You need them. You can't rest if you're in constant pain. Your body needs to heal. Take them. Evelyn took the pills reluctantly. Within 20 minutes, she was asleep. Her rifle cradled in her arms like a child's stuffed animal. The weapon that had kept her alive. The weapon that defined her. Even in sleep, she couldn't let go. The team watched over her. She saved us again, Donovan said quietly. That's what, 3 times today? 4, I've lost count. Too many times, Winston agreed, and she got wounded doing it. Took shrapnel that was meant for all of us. Went out there alone to protect our flank. Thad stared at the woman sleeping in the corner. The woman he'd mocked just days earlier. The woman who'd protected him, saved him, killed for him, bled for him, who'd put herself between him and death multiple times without hesitation. My father was Lieutenant Nathaniel Mercer, he said quietly. Operation Phantom Gate, 2019. The team turned to look at him. This was news. This changed things. He died in that operation, Thad continued. Died holding rear guard so his team could escape. Died protecting people. And before he deployed, he told my mom about someone named Iron Wolf. Told her that if anything happened to him, Iron Wolf would make sure the team came home safe. He looked at Evelyn sleeping. I requested this assignment, pulled strings to get assigned to this team, because I wanted to meet the person my father trusted most, the person he believed in enough to bet his life on. And you mocked her when you arrived, Winston said. Not judgment, just fact. Yeah, I mocked her. I was an idiot. I judged her based on nothing, on prejudice and ignorance and stupidity. And she spent the last 2 days keeping me alive, keeping all of us alive. She's everything my father said she was, everything and more. Garrett stood, walked to Evelyn, looked down at her sleeping form. Your father was right to trust her. She's the best I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot in 20 years. She's something special, something rare. The kind of operator who comes along once in a generation if you're lucky. The kind who wins medals, Augustus added. The kind who saves lives, Winston finished. Outside, the storm continued. Christmas night bleeding into Christmas morning. Somewhere in the darkness, Volkov was regrouping, planning, preparing for one final assault. They'd lost nearly half their force, but they weren't done. Neither was Iron Wolf. She was just getting started. Dawn came gray and bitter. Evelyn woke exactly 6 hours after falling asleep. Not because of an alarm, not because someone woke her, but because her internal clock had learned to track time without external reference. 6 hours was enough, had to be enough. Her leg throbbed with each heartbeat, a dull, persistent pain that radiated from the wound site. But the pain was manageable, tolerable. She could function. That was all that mattered. She tested the leg carefully, put partial weight on it. It held. Hurt like hell, but held. She could walk, couldn't run, but could walk, could fight from a static position. Could do her job. Augustus noticed her moving. How's the leg? Functional. That's not what I asked. How does it feel? Like I took shrapnel to the thigh. It hurts, but I can work through it. You shouldn't have to work through it. You should rest. Heal properly. Rest is a luxury. We don't have luxuries right now. She stood, limping slightly but maintaining balance. Moved to the window. Looked out at the battlefield that the storm had created. Bodies dotted the snow. Equipment abandoned in retreat. Blood frozen into red ice that marked where men had fallen. Evidence of violence. Proof that yesterday had been real and not some fever dream. Count 19 enemy KYA visible from here, she reported automatically. Always assessing, always calculating. Actual numbers probably higher. Some fell in areas we can't see. Some were dragged away by their comrades. Total enemy losses approximately 42/2 engagements. Garrett joined her at the window. Think they'll come back, Evelyn nodded slowly. They've committed too much, lost too many people. If they quit now, all those deaths mean nothing. Volkov needs to justify the cost, needs to prove it was worth it. His pride won't let him walk away. So yes, they'll come back, one more time, all or nothing. When home, she studied the sky, the wind patterns, the terrain, the psychology of a commander who'd lost 42 men and still wanted more. Tonight, they'll use the darkness again, but this time they won't hold anything back. Every person they have, every weapon, every tactic, they'll throw everything at us because this is their last chance. Either they break us tonight or they admit defeat. Can we hold? Evelyn was silent for a long moment. The question hung between them. Honest, brutal, requiring an honest answer. I don't know. It was the first time she'd admitted uncertainty. That scared the team more than anything else could have. Iron Wolf never doubted, never wavered. If she didn't know, then nobody knew. Winston approached with an ammunition count. We're low, critically low. Between yesterday and last night, we've expended approximately 70% of our supply. I'm down to my last magazine, Evelyn added. 20 rounds total. Need to make everyone count. Finnegan looked up from his radio equipment. Still can't raise command. I've tried every frequency, every protocol. Nothing. Either the storm is still blocking us or someone's jamming us deliberately. Either way, we can't call for help. Garrett assessed their situation. 6 people, limited ammunition, no support, no communications, facing an enemy force that outnumbered them significantly. And their best asset, Iron Wolf, was wounded and down to her last magazine. The odds weren't good. Weren't even close to good. Then Finnegan's hands flew across his equipment. Wait, wait, I'm getting something. The interference, it's clearing. Atmospheric conditions are changing. I think I can. Static burst through the speakers. Then a voice, faint but clear, real and not imagined. Overwatch, this is command. Do you copy? Overwatch, respond if you can hear this transmission. Finnegan grabbed the handset like it was salvation incarnate. Command, this is Overwatch. We copy. We copy. Relief flooded through the bunker like a physical force. Overwatch, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for 2 days straight. What's your status report immediately? Garrett took the handset. Command, we've been under sustained enemy assault. Multiple engagements over 48 hours. We've held position, but we've taken casualties and we're critically low on ammunition. Copy that, casualties. 1 wounded, non-life-threatening but mobility limited. 5 combat, effective but exhausted. We've faced over 60 hostiles in the last 2 days. Professional force, well-trained, well-equipped. Understood. What's your ammunition status? Approximately 30% remaining. Sniper support is down to final magazine, 20 rounds. A long pause on the other end. Long enough that Garrett thought they'd lost the connection. Then Overwatch were launching extraction now. 2 helicopters with full security team. ETA 90 minutes. Can you hold that long? Garrett looked at the sun. 90 minutes would put extraction around 1630 hours. Sunset was at 1700, cutting it close. Very close. Affirmative. We can hold. Good. Stay tight. Keep your heads down. Relief is coming. Don't do anything heroic. Just survive. Command out. Garrett lowered the handset. We've got 90 minutes. Then we go home. The team's relief was palpable. Physical. That actually laughed. Donovan clapped Winston on the back. Augustus smiled for the first time in days. Even Finnegan allowed himself a grin. But Evelyn didn't celebrate. She was staring out the window, her expression troubled. Calculating? Seeing something the others didn't. What's wrong? Garrett asked quietly. The enemy knows we're low on ammunition. They've been watching us, learning our patterns, counting our shots. They know we're weakest right now. Vulnerable. So they're not going to wait until tonight. They're going to hit us in the next hour, before extraction arrives, before we can escape. It's what I would do. It's what any competent commander would do. Garrett's blood ran cold. The relief evaporated. You're sure? No, but look at their previous tactics. They've been aggressive, willing to take casualties, willing to sacrifice to achieve objectives. They're not patient. And if Volkov has any intelligence capability at all, and he does, he's monitoring our radio frequencies. He knows help is coming. He knows extraction is 90 minutes out. She turned to face him. So he'll attack before it gets here. He'll throw everything he has at us, because this is his last chance. After this, we're gone. After this, he's failed. His pride won't allow that. His need for revenge won't allow that. Garrett knew she was right. He'd known it the moment she said it. The pattern was clear. The logic was sound. Volkov would come. Soon. With everything. All positions, he ordered. Stand to. Full alert. Load weapons. Fix bayonets. They're coming early. The team scrambled, checked weapons one last time, made peace with whatever gods they believed in, prepared to hold for 90 more minutes, just 90 minutes between them and safety, between them and home. 30 minutes passed, nothing. Maybe you're wrong, Thad said hopefully. Maybe they're actually gone this time. Maybe, Evelyn replied, but she didn't believe it, could feel it coming like a storm. Like violence had a smell and she could taste it on the air. At 1600 hours, she saw movement, a lot of movement, more than before, more than should have been possible. Contact, all directions, they're surrounding us. Garrett looked through his scope. Hostiles were approaching from northeast and south simultaneously. At least 65 people visible, possibly more in reserve. Every person Volkov had left, everything he could field. The final assault. They're committing everything, Winston breathed. Final assault, Evelyn confirmed. Her voice flat. They're going to overrun us or die trying. This is it. This is what everything has been building toward. How long until extraction? Garrett checked his watch. 30 minutes. We just need to hold for 30 minutes, Thad said. 30 minutes. We can do that. We have to do that. Evelyn chambered around, her last magazine. 20 rounds between survival and death. We'll do it or we'll die. There's no middle ground here. No surrender. No retreat. Just hold or fall. The enemy opened fire, all positions simultaneously. The bunker was engulfed in incoming rounds. Walls shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The sound was deafening, overwhelming, the kind of fire volume that said someone was serious about killing them all. "Return fire," Garrett ordered. The SEALs engaged, but the enemy fire was overwhelming. They couldn't raise their heads without risking being hit, couldn't maintain aimed fire, could only shoot and hope and pray. Evelyn found a target through the chaos, fired, another down, but it barely made a dent. There were too many. The mathematics didn't work, couldn't work. "They're rushing the north side," Winston called. "Mass assault, at least 15 hostiles in the open." Evelyn fired methodically, one down. Two, three, four, making each shot count because she had to. Winston and Thad joined in. 5, 6, 7, 8. 7 hostiles made it to the wall, threw grenades into the firing ports. Multiple grenades, more than before. A coordinated bombardment. "Grenades!" Garrett shouted. Everyone dove for cover. The explosions were deafening inside the confined space. Shrapnel tore through the air like angry hornets. When the smoke cleared, Augustus was down, bleeding from multiple wounds. Serious wounds, life-threatening wounds. Donovan was unconscious. Blast concussion. Not moving. Winston had taken shrapnel to his arm. Bad, bleeding, but still functional, still able to fight. That left Garrett, Thad, and Evelyn still combat effective. 3 people against 65. The mathematics of desperation. "You seal the north wall," Garrett ordered, his voice tight with controlled panic. Thad dragged debris to block the firing port where the grenades had come through. Wouldn't stop bullets, but would prevent more grenades. A temporary fix. Everything was temporary now. Evelyn kept shooting, 9 kills, 10, 11. Her magazine was half empty, 10 rounds left, 50-plus enemies still mobile. "East side's collapsing," Thad reported. "I can't hold them. They're coming through." "Pull back to the interior room," Garrett ordered. "We'll bottleneck them. Make them come through the door one at a time. Make them pay for every meter." They fell back, dragged Augustus and Donovan with them into the interior room, set up firing positions covering the single entrance. The last defensive position. The final stand. Outside, they could hear the enemy breaching the bunker, boots on concrete, voices shouting in Russian, the sound of victory approaching, the sound of their own deaths getting closer. "This is it," Garrett said quietly. "We hold this room for 20 more minutes, just 20 minutes. That's all we need. 20 minutes and the helicopters arrive. We can do this." Evelyn checked her magazine. 10 rounds left. 10 rounds against approximately 40 hostiles still mobile. She did the mathematics, came up with an answer she didn't like. "Garrett," she said quietly. He looked at her. "When they come through that door, I want you to take Thad and run. Get out the back. Get to the extraction point. Get home." "What? No, we fight together. You can't win this. The numbers don't work. But you can survive. If someone holds them here, buys you time, you can make it. That's someone being you." "Yes." "Absolutely not. We all go or none of us go. That's how this works. That's how everyone dies. Let me do this. Let me buy you time. It's the only way anyone survives." Before Garrett could respond, the door exploded inward. Breaching charge. Professional entry. Hostiles poured through in a coordinated assault. Evelyn fired. The first 3 went down before they realized what was happening. Headshots. Perfect. No wasted ammunition. Garrett and Thad fired from the sides, creating a crossfire that tore through the doorway. Bodies piled up. The enemy had to climb over their dead to enter. It slowed them but didn't stop them. Nothing was going to stop them. Evelyn's magazine ran dry. She dropped it. No more ammunition, no more options. The rifle that had defined her for 4 years was now just an expensive club. She dropped the rifle, drew her sidearm, 15 rounds, smaller caliber, less effective, but better than nothing. The enemy kept coming. They'd lost dozens of people, but they didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Had gone too far, committed too much. This had become about more than the mission. This was about pride, about proving something, about revenge that wouldn't be satisfied until everyone was dead. Evelyn fired until her pistol was empty, threw it aside, grabbed a knife from her belt. If it came to that, if it came to blades and desperation and fighting to the last breath, she was ready, had always been ready. A hostile came through the door. She met him with the blade, fast, brutal, efficient, the kind of close combat that was ugly and desperate and nothing like the movies. He went down, another came. She moved like water, deflecting his rifle, driving the knife up under his ribs. He collapsed, choking on his own blood. Garrett was out of ammunition. He fought with a rifle as a club, swinging, crushing, breaking bones because that's all he had left. Thad had switched to his sidearm, a shot carefully placed, making the ammunition stretch as long as possible because giving up wasn't an option. And then impossibly, beautifully, miraculously, they heard it. The sound of helicopter rotors, getting closer, getting louder. Real and not imagined. The cavalry had arrived. The enemy heard it too. Their assault faltered. Some tried to run, tried to escape. Others kept fighting, too committed or too enraged or too stupid to stop. Gunfire erupted from outside. The security team from the helicopters had engaged. Door gunners with heavy machine guns. Infantry with automatic weapons. Hitting the enemy from behind with overwhelming firepower. Caught between the bunker defense and the fresh troops, Volkov's force collapsed. Some surrendered, threw down weapons and raised hands. Most died. Died fighting or died running, but died either way. 10 minutes later, it was over. Really over. No more shooting, no more dying, just silence and smoke, and the overwhelming smell of cordite and blood. Garrett, Thad, and Evelyn stood in a room filled with bodies, covered in gore, barely standing, running on pure adrenaline and the stubborn refusal to die. A SEAL from the extraction team appeared in the doorway. He looked at the carnage, at the bodies piled 3 deep, at the 3 survivors covered in blood and death. His eyes widened in something like awe. Jesus Christ, you 3 held this against, he gestured at the bodies. Couldn't find words. How many? Too many, Garrett replied, his voice hoarse, ruined from shouting orders and breathing smoke. Get our wounded on the helicopters. Now, move. They carried Augustus out on a stretcher. Critical, but alive. Barely alive. Donovan on another stretcher. Still unconscious, but breathing. Winston walked under his own power, clutching his wounded arm. Refusing help because he was stubborn and proud and still had some dignity left. Thad followed, looking like he'd aged a decade in 3 days. Looking like he'd seen things no 22-year-old should ever see. Evelyn was the last to leave. She stood in the doorway, looking back at the bunker that had been their fortress, their prison, their whole world for 72 hours. The walls were scarred with bullet impacts, pockmarked, damaged but still standing. The floor was slick with blood, so much blood. American and enemy mixed together until you couldn't tell whose was whose. So much death, so much violence, so much sacrifice. But they'd survived. She turned and walked into the sunlight, limped toward the waiting helicopter on a leg that screamed with every step. As she climbed aboard, one of the extraction team members stared at her. Young, maybe 25, eyes wide. Are you Iron Wolf? She nodded once. I've heard stories about you. Didn't know if they were true. Evelyn looked back at the battlefield, at the dozens of bodies lying in the snow, at the bunker that had held against impossible odds, at the evidence of violence that would haunt her dreams for years to come. They're true. The helicopter lifted off. Evelyn watched the bunker shrink below them, watched the mountains fade into distance, watched the battlefield become just another point on a map. She'd bled for those mountains, killed for them. Almost died protecting the people who trusted her. But she'd also saved 5 people, protected her team, done her duty, done what Nathaniel had trusted her to do. That was all that mattered. That was all it ever was. Beside her, Thad sat in silence, staring at nothing, processing everything. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet, almost lost in the rotor noise. Captain Aldridge, she looked at him. My father was Lieutenant Nathaniel Mercer, Operation Phantom Gate, January 2019. Evelyn froze. The son Nathaniel had died protecting, the son she hadn't known existed until that moment. He wrote my mom about Iron Wolf before that mission, Thad continued, his voice cracking. Said if he didn't come back, find the wolf who'd protect his team, find the person he trusted most. Tears ran down his face, unashamed, honest. I requested this assignment, pulled every string I had because I wanted to meet the person my dad trusted with his life. Evelyn couldn't speak. 4 years of guilt, 4 years of carrying Nathaniel's death, 4 years of believing she'd failed. You didn't save him, Thad said, voice breaking. But you tried. He chose to stay so you could fight, so you could save the others, and you did. You saved 3 people that day, and you saved me this week, multiple times. You protected me exactly like he asked you to. For the first time in 4 years, something broke inside Evelyn. Not completely, But enough, a crack in the ice, a thaw beginning. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The words cost her, hurt coming out. "I'm so sorry I couldn't save him." Thad shook his head. "You fulfilled his wish. You protected his team. You protected me. He'd be proud. He'd be so proud of you." The helicopter flew on, carrying them away from the battlefield, toward safety, toward home, toward a future that suddenly seemed possible again. But Evelyn knew the war wasn't over. Volkov was still out there, still breathing, still planning, still hunting. The thought should have scared her, should have made her anxious. Instead, she felt nothing, just the familiar cold numbness. The ice that protected her, the iron that kept her strong. Iron never bent, iron never broke. But maybe, just maybe, iron could learn to thaw. The helicopter touched down at Ramstein Air Base, Germany 2 hours later. Medical teams swarmed, organized chaos, professional efficiency. They took Augustus first, critical, racing against time and blood loss and traumatic injury. The doctors worked with calm urgency. He'd live. Probably. Maybe. If they were fast enough. Donovan woke up on the gurney, confused, disoriented. You're safe," the medic told him. "Concussion, possible skull fracture. You're going to be fine. We've got you." Winston refused a stretcher, walked on his own power to the emergency room despite blood dripping from his wounded arm. Stubborn, proud, still capable of walking and therefore not weak enough to need help. They tried to put Evelyn on a stretcher. She refused. "I can walk." "Ma'am, you've lost a significant amount of blood. Your leg wound needs immediate surgery. I can walk." She stood. Her legs screamed. She ignored it, took one step, then another, proving something to herself, proving she was still functional, still capable, still Iron Wolf. Garrett moved to help her. She waved him off. "I can walk." She made it 15 feet before her leg gave out. She didn't fall, just stopped, stood there swaying slightly, refusing to acknowledge that her body had limits, that she was human and subject to physics and biology and reality. Garrett caught her as she started to tip. "Stubborn doesn't make you stronger, Captain. It just makes you harder to help." "I don't need help." "Yes, you do. We all do sometimes. That's not weakness. That's being human." They got her on the stretcher. She didn't fight it this time. Too tired, too much blood loss, too much everything. The adrenaline had finally worn off and all that was left was pain and exhaustion and the crushing weight of surviving when you'd expected to die. The last thing she saw before they put her under for surgery was Thad's face. Nathaniel's eyes looking back at her. The eyes of a man she'd failed to save staring at her from his son's face. No, the eyes of a man who'd chosen to stay, who'd bought time with his life, who'd trusted her to protect what mattered. She'd honored that trust, protected his son, done what Nathaniel had asked. Maybe that was enough. Maybe. 4 days passed in morphine haze and sterile white rooms. When Evelyn finally woke fully, she was in a hospital room at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center. Machines beeped steadily, IV drips, clean white walls that smelled like antiseptic and false hope. The kind of place where people came to heal or die. Admiral Steele sat in a chair beside her bed, reading a report. He looked up when her eyes opened. "Welcome back, Captain." Her throat was dry. "How long?" "4 days. The surgeon said you shouldn't have survived. Blood loss, hypothermia, infection risk, shrapnel that came within millimeters of your femoral artery. You were in rough shape when they brought you in. Critical condition for the first 48 hours. The team, all alive. Augustus is still in recovery, lost some function in his shoulder, permanent nerve damage. He'll be medically retired. Donovan's cleared for duty. Skull fracture healed clean. Winston's arm needed extensive surgery, but he'll make a full recovery eventually. Garrett, Thad, and Finnegan had minor injuries. Cuts, bruises, nothing serious. They'll all return to active duty. Evelyn closed her eyes. All alive, mission complete. Volkov, Steele's expression changed, became harder. Initially escaped in the chaos, security team was focused on extracting you and treating casualties. By the time they secured the area, he was gone, disappeared into the mountains. Evelyn's eyes snapped open. He's still out there. Was, past tense. Steele leaned forward. Security team found him 2 hours later, trying to reach a vehicle they'd hidden 3 kilometers from the bunker. He was wounded, slowed down. They caught him. Is he alive? Very much so. In custody at a black site in Poland, maximum security. He's being interrogated, giving up intelligence on Russian mercenary networks, Spetsnaz connections. He'll spend the rest of his life in a cell. No trial, no publicity, just gone. Evelyn should have felt relief, should have felt satisfaction. Volkov was neutralized. The threat was over. But she felt nothing, just the familiar emptiness. Captain Steele said quietly, I'm recommending you for the Navy Cross, again. And before you decline like you did after Phantom Gate, consider this. It's not about you anymore. It's about every young operator who needs to see that excellence is possible, that doing the impossible is achievable, that gender or background or any other factor doesn't matter compared to skill and dedication and courage. I'm not a role model. You don't get to choose that. You are what you are. People will look up to you whether you want them to or not. The question is whether you'll accept the responsibility that comes with it. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. What if I don't want it? Too bad, you earned it. You saved 5 American lives against overwhelming odds. You held a position that should have fallen in the first assault. You inspired people, whether you meant to or not. Now you need to own it. The door opened. Garrett walked in, followed by the rest of the team. Everyone who could walk. They looked different, cleaned up, bandaged, but different in a deeper way too, like they'd crossed a threshold and could never go back. Captain, Garrett said, good to see you awake. Good to be awake. Thad approached the bed. He was holding something. A photograph, old, creased, carried too long. I wanted to show you this. He handed it to her. The photo showed a young man in uniform, Nathaniel Mercer, maybe 25 years old, holding a baby, smiling with pure uncomplicated joy, the kind of smile that came from believing the world was good. That's my dad, holding me. I was 3 months old. Evelyn stared at the photo, at Nathaniel's smile, at the baby who would grow up to join the SEALs, to fight beside Iron Wolf, to save her life. He kept a journal, Thad continued. My mom gave it to me after he died. There's an entry from the night before Phantom Gate. He pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook, opened it to a marked page, read January 16th, 2019. Deployed tomorrow. High-risk extraction. If I don't make it back, I want Thad to know Iron Wolf is the best operator I've ever worked with. She doesn't know how to quit. Doesn't know how to leave people behind. If something happens to me, she'll make sure the team comes home. She protects like no one else. That's what wolves do. They protect the pack. Evelyn's hand started to shake. She set down the photo carefully, like it might break. He knew, she whispered. He knew he wasn't coming back. Maybe, or maybe he just wanted to make sure someone would look after his people if things went wrong. Either way, he was right. You did protect them. You protected me. Something broke inside Evelyn. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet crack, like ice beginning to thaw after a long winter. She'd carried Nathaniel's death for 4 years, carried the weight of 3 survivors and 3 dead, carried the guilt of disobeying orders and not saving everyone. But Nathaniel had known, had trusted her, had believed she'd do exactly what she did. I'm sorry, she said. The words came out rough, broken. I'm so sorry I couldn't save him. Thad shook his head. You tried. That's all anyone can do. And you saved 3 others. You saved yourself. Dad would count that as a win, a victory, something to be proud of. I don't. Then learn how. Because carrying that guilt isn't honoring him. It's wasting the life he bought for you, the life he chose to give you by staying behind. For the first time in 4 years, Evelyn cried. Not much. Just a few tears that she wiped away quickly like they were evidence of weakness. But the team saw, understood. And nobody said anything. They just stood there. Brothers and sisters in arms, bound by blood and fire and survival. 3 weeks later, Evelyn was cleared for discharge. Limited duty, no field operations for at least 6 months. Her leg would heal, but it would take time. Physical therapy, patience. The Navy Cross ceremony was scheduled for the following week. Naval Station Norfolk, full dress uniforms, media present. Politicians who'd never seen combat talking about sacrifice and duty. Everything she hated, but she'd promised. So she went. The ceremony was exactly as awful as expected. Speeches that rang hollow. Cameras that made her feel exposed. Applause that felt undeserved. She stood at attention and endured it. Focused on a point on the far wall and waited for it to end. Admiral Steele pinned the medal to her uniform. The Navy Cross, second highest decoration for valor. 51 confirmed enemy kills over 3 days. 6 American lives saved against overwhelming odds. The citation was read aloud. She didn't listen. Just stood there and waited. When it was finally her turn to speak, she kept it short. Honest. I'm not a hero. I'm a soldier who had incredible teammates. They're the ones who fought, who bled, who refused to quit even when the odds said they should. They deserve recognition. Not me, thank you. She stepped back. The audience applauded. She hated every second. Afterward at the reception, people kept approaching, thanking her, asking for photos, treating her like something special instead of just someone who'd done her job and gotten lucky enough to survive. She was about to leave when a young woman approached. Navy uniform, ensign rank, couldn't be more than 25. Captain Aldridge, Evelyn turned. Yes, I'm Ensign Rachel Kincaid. I just wanted to thank you. For what? For existing, for proving it's possible. Well, Rachel's voice was nervous but steady. Practiced. I start Scout Sniper School next month. I've been training for 2 years. And every time someone tells me I can't do it, that women don't belong in that program, I think about you, about what you've accomplished. And I try harder. Evelyn studied her, saw herself 10 years ago, young, determined, angry at a world that kept saying no. Sniper school is hard, Evelyn said. The physical standards, the mental stress, the isolation. A lot of people wash out, men and women both. I know, but you didn't wash out. You made it. You became one of the best. And if you can do it, then I can at least try mine. What's your motivation, Evelyn asked. Why do you want to be a sniper? Rachel didn't hesitate. I want to protect people. I want to be the person standing between danger and those who can't defend themselves. I want my life to matter, to mean something. Evelyn nodded slowly. Then you've got the right reason. Keep that reason close. When training gets hard, and it will get hard, remember why you're doing it. That'll carry you through when nothing else will. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. How do you handle it, the killing, taking lives? Does it ever get easier? Everyone wanted to know that answer, but most were too afraid to ask. No, Evelyn said quietly. It never gets easier. And if it does, that's when you need to stop. Every person I've killed weighs on me. I remember every face, every shot, even the ones who would have killed me and my team if I hadn't pulled the trigger first. Then how do you keep doing it? Because the weight of those deaths is lighter than the weight of my teammates dying. If I have to carry the burden of taking lives so that the people I'm protecting can go home to their families, then I'll carry that burden. That's the job. That's the oath we take. That's what it means to be the person standing in the gap. Rachel nodded slowly. Understanding, or beginning to understand. Thank you, ma'am. That helps. That helps more than you know. She started to leave. Evelyn called after her. Ensign Kincaid. Ma'am, you're going to do fine. Just remember, being a good sniper isn't about making impossible shots. It's about making the right shots, the ones that matter, the ones that save lives. Everything else is just ego. Rachel smiled, saluted, walked away with a little more confidence, a little more certainty that she belonged. Evelyn watched her go, saw a younger version of herself, full of fire and determination, and the belief that one person could make a difference. Maybe she could, maybe that's what it was all about. Admiral Steele appeared at her elbow. That girl worships you. You know that, right? I'm not worth worshiping. That's not for you to decide. He paused. I have an offer for you, promotion to major, instructor position at Scout Sniper School. You'd train the next generation, teach them everything you know, give them the skills to survive what you survived. I'm better in the field. You're exceptional in the field, but you're also exceptional at leading by example. Those students need someone who can show them what right looks like, who can prepare them for reality, who can give them the truth instead of comfortable lies. I'll think about it. Take your time. The offer stands. But Evelyn, he used her first name. Rare. Significant. Teaching isn't less important than fighting. Sometimes it's more important, because you're not just saving lives in one engagement. You're saving lives for years to come. Every student you train properly is someone who will go on to save others. It multiplies, compounds. Think about that. He walked away, leaving Evelyn alone with her thoughts. Instructor, training others, passing on knowledge. It wasn't the field, wasn't the fight, wasn't the adrenaline and violence and cold mathematics she understood. But maybe it was something more important. Maybe, 1 year later, December 25th, 2024, Arlington National Cemetery. Snow fell gently over the headstones. Christmas morning, the cemetery was quiet, peaceful, sacred. Major Evelyn Aldridge, 35 years old, promoted 6 months prior, stood in front of Nathaniel Mercer's grave. She wore her service uniform. the Navy cross on her chest, oak leaves on her collar. A major now, an instructor, a teacher instead of a hunter. "Morning, Nathaniel," she said quietly. "Merry Christmas." The stone was silent, just granite and memory. "I met your son. He's doing well. Made lieutenant 3 months ago. Following your path. You'd be proud." She knelt, brushed snow from the base of the stone. "I'm teaching now, training the next generation, trying to give them what they need to come home alive, trying to make sure they don't make my mistakes." Footsteps in the snow behind her. She turned. Lieutenant Thad Mercer approached, dress uniform, also here to visit his father. A tradition now, every Christmas morning. "Major Aldridge, Merry Christmas." "Thad, Merry Christmas." They stood together in silence, honoring the dead, remembering sacrifice. "How's instructor duty?" Thad asked. "Different, good different. The students are motivated. Some have real potential." "Anyone stand out?" Evelyn smiled slightly. "There's one, Rachel Kincaid. She graduated top of her class last month. Male and female combined. Earned callsign Frostbite. Frostbite. Her classmates gave it to her, said she was cold as ice under pressure. Never cracked, never quit, reminded them of someone." Thad grinned. "Wonder who?" "She deployed 2 weeks ago. First assignment, Overwatch in Eastern Europe. I gave her my M110, the rifle I used at Phantom Gate. Told her to take care of it." "That must have been hard. That rifle meant something to you." "It did, but it's time. She'll use it well. She'll protect people with it. That's what it was made for." More silence. Comfortable this time. "Dad would be proud of you," Thad said. "What you're doing, training people, passing on knowledge, that matters. That legacy matters." "I hope so. I know so, because one of your students might save my life someday, or someone else's. The training you give them multiplies, spreads, protects people you'll never meet. That's powerful." Evelyn looked at the grave, at Nathaniel's name carved in stone, at the dates that marked a life cut short. "I'm trying to honor his sacrifice by making sure fewer people have to make the same one, man, by giving them the skills to survive, to come home. That's all anyone can do, honor the dead by protecting the living." They stood together until the cold became too much, said their goodbyes to the dead, walked back toward the living world. At the cemetery gates they parted, Thad back to his unit, Evelyn back to the school where young snipers learned to be wolves. She drove through empty Christmas morning streets, past houses decorated with lights, past families opening presents, past the normal world that existed because people like Nathaniel had died protecting it. She didn't resent the normalcy, didn't feel separate from it, just accepted it. This was the world. This was what they fought for. The quiet mornings and warm houses and families together. That was enough. At Scout Sniper School, she walked through the quiet campus. Everyone gone for the holidays. Ranges empty, classrooms dark. She went to her office, sat at her desk, looked at the photos on her wall. Rachel Kincaid graduating. Top of class. Proud smile. Other students. Other graduates. Other young operators she'd trained and sent into the world. Her legacy. Not in kills, not in medals, but in lives saved, in knowledge passed on, in the next generation being ready. That was worth more than any citation, any award, any recognition. She was Iron Wolf, the legend, the ghost, the sniper who never missed. But she was also Major Evelyn Aldridge, instructor, teacher, protector of those who would protect others. Both things were true. Both things mattered. The iron kept her strong, but the person inside kept her human. And maybe finally that was enough. Outside, the snow continued to fall, silent, beautiful, covering the world in white. The wolves were at rest, for now. But when they were needed again, when violence came calling and people needed protecting, they would be ready. Because that's what wolves do. They protect the pack, always.